Metter, Georgia. A Tuesday morning in October 1955. A small hardware store on the main street. The kind of place that sells everything and fixes nothing fast. Paint cans stacked in the window. A hand-lettered sign for chicken wire. 3 wooden steps up to a screen door that never quite closes all the way. A woman named Helen Pruitt is standing outside that door. She is 58 years old. Her husband Roy died 14 months ago. A farm equipment accident on a wet morning in August 1954. She has been managing the house, the bills, and everything else since then without telling anyone how hard it has gotten. She is not there to buy anything. A man named Cutter Doss is leaning against the wall beside her. He is well dressed for Metter. Dark jacket, clean shoes. He has a small leather notebook in his left hand. He is speaking to her in a low voice, but the street is quiet enough that you can hear the tone of it from 20 feet away. Not angry, worse than angry, patient. The kind of patient that knows it has all the time in the world because the other person has none. Helen owes him $430. She borrowed the money 11 months ago when the furnace cracked in January and she had 2 grandchildren staying with her and the temperature dropped to 9 degrees 3 nights running. The interest has been running at a rate she didn't fully understand when she signed. It tends to work that way with Cutter Doss. He had a talent for making the number sound smaller in the moment and larger every month after. He is telling her now, quietly and pleasantly, that if she does not have the full amount by Friday, he will be speaking to the county about the lien he holds on the property. Helen's hands are pressed flat against the front of her coat. She is not crying. She is too tired to cry. She is doing the thing a person does when they are calculating backward through everything they have and coming up with the same answer every time. Nobody on the street is stopping. This is the part worth holding on to, because the street is not empty. There are people, a man loading feed bags into a truck, 2 women talking in front of the dry goods store, a teenager on a bicycle, and not one of them is slowing down, not because they don't see it. Because Cutter Doss has been doing this in Metter for 11 years and the understanding is unspoken and complete. This is how it works here, and there is no percentage in stepping into it. At the far end of the block, a black car has pulled up to the curb. The man who gets out is large, not threatening in the way of someone trying to look threatening, just large in the way of a man who grew up working and never stopped. He is wearing a plain jacket and a hat with the brim pulled low against the October light. His face is one of those faces that doesn't announce itself. Heavy-lidded eyes, a jaw that could have been cut from something harder than bone. He is in Metter because the picture he just finished shooting in Savannah has wrapped 2 days early, and someone on the crew told him about a diner outside of town that does a short rib that's worth the drive. He is not looking for anything. He is not in any particular mood. He is a man who has learned to be entirely without urgency, which is maybe why he notices things other people miss. He sees Helen Pruitt's hands pressed flat against her coat. He sees Cutter Doss's leather notebook. He doesn't walk over immediately. He stands at the car for a moment. He lights a cigarette. He looks at the situation the way a man looks at something he is deciding whether it is his business. The half-closed eyes take in the distance between the 2 people. The angle of Doss's shoulders. The way Helen is standing very still in the way that people stand when they are trying not to show how afraid they are. He takes one long drag, drops the cigarette, walks over. "Excuse me." His voice is low and even, not loud. He is not performing anything for the street. Cutter Doss turns around. He is not a small man, but he looks at the person now standing 3 feet from him, and something recalibrates behind his eyes. Something that has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with the specific animal instinct that tells you when you are in the presence of someone who has never once been afraid of anything you could threaten him with. "Help you with something?" Doss says. He doesn't answer right away. He is looking at Helen. "Is this man giving you trouble, ma'am?" Helen opens her mouth, closes it. She doesn't know who this is. She doesn't know what to say. She says, "He holds a note on my property. It's a legal matter." He looks at Doss. "What are the terms?" Doss smiles. "That's between me and the lady." He reaches into his jacket pocket. Not fast. Unhurried. He produces a small folded envelope and holds it out toward Doss. Doss looks at it. He looks at the man holding it. He doesn't take it. "What's this?" He says, "Open it." Doss opens it. Inside is cash. He counts it without moving his lips. $430. Exact. Doss looks up. "Where did you get the exact figure?" He looks at him with those heavy, sleepy eyes and says nothing for a long moment. Then he says, "I've been standing at the end of this block for 4 minutes. You're not a quiet man." Doss is still holding the envelope. He is trying to find the angle. There is always an angle with men like Cutter Doss. They don't know how to be in a situation where there isn't one. He says, "I don't know who you are. Doesn't matter who I am." He says it the way you state a fact about the weather. Does the cash clear the note? Doss looks at Helen. Helen is very still. Doss says, "It does. Then we're done here." Doss closes the envelope. He puts it in his jacket pocket. He looks at the man standing in front of him for one more second, the way a man looks when he is deciding whether he has any cards left to play. He does not. He knows it. He adjusts his jacket, nods once to nobody in particular, and walks to his car. Helen Pruitt watches him go. The black car pulls out slowly, no rush, and disappears around the far corner. The man loading feed bags across the street has stopped loading. He is standing with a bag in his arms looking at the two people on the sidewalk. The two women in front of the dry goods store have gone quiet. The street has not changed, but the texture of it has. Something happened here that doesn't usually happen here, and every person within 100 feet of it knows it. Then she turns. She is looking at the man standing beside her, like she is trying to place him from somewhere she can't quite name. She says, "I don't know how to thank you for that." He says, "You don't have to." He says it without looking away from the direction Cutter Doss just walked, making sure the car actually leaves. It does. He looks at her then. He says, "You got somewhere to be?" She says, "I was going to go home." He says, "Let me buy you a cup of coffee first." In the tone of a man who is not asking a favor, just settling a fact. She says yes. They walk to the diner at the end of the block. He holds the door. They sit. He orders 2 coffees and a piece of pie he doesn't touch, and she talks for 40 minutes about Roy and the grandchildren and the furnace and the 11 months and all the arithmetic that hadn't been adding up, and he listens to all of it without checking the time once. At one point, the waitress comes back to refill the cups and gives him a long look, trying to place the face. He doesn't acknowledge it. He is listening to Helen. When he leaves, he pays the check. He doesn't make a production of it. He puts the money on the counter and puts his hat on and says it was good to meet her and walks out the door. She watches him go through the diner window. A big man in a plain jacket walking back toward the black car at the end of the block. No hurry, no performance. Just a man going back to whatever the day had before it brought him here. Helen finds out who he is 3 days later. Her neighbor's son mentions it, having heard it from someone else. She sits with that information for a long while. She tells the story to her daughter on the telephone that evening. Her daughter doesn't quite believe it. Helen says, "I know. But it happened exactly like that." But here is what none of the people on that street in Metter knew when they kept walking. Here is the part that gets missed when this kind of story gets passed around. Robert Mitchum was 38 years old in October 1955. He had already made 60 films. He had been arrested, convicted, and served time in a California jail on a marijuana charge in 1948 and come out the other side with his career not just intact but larger. He had looked into the lens of every camera that ever pointed at him with the expression of a man who had decided a very long time ago that the opinion of institutions, studios, courts, critics, the whole machinery of judgment, did not concern him. He had grown up without a father. His father died in a train accident when Robert was 2 years old. He had ridden freight trains as a teenager, sleeping in boxcars and eating whatever could be found or taken. He had been arrested for vagrancy at 16 and sentenced to a work camp in Georgia. He knew what those camps were. He did not romanticize them. He served his time, kept his head, and walked out with a knowledge of human desperation that no drama school on earth could have taught him. He boxed professionally after that, 27 fights. He was not elegant about it. He simply did not go down. He worked in a Georgia chain gang, boxed professionally, drifted through 20 different jobs before anyone pointed a camera at him. He knew what it meant to have nothing and to owe somebody for the privilege of almost having something. He had lived in the arithmetic that didn't add up. This is why he crossed the street. Not because he was making a point. Not because anyone was watching. Not even because he had thought it through. He crossed the street because the hands pressed flat against that coat said everything to a man who had spent his early life being the person nobody crossed the street for. He went on to make over 100 films. He played villains who made audiences shiver and heroes who made them believe. He played Harry Powell in The Night of the Hunter in 1955, a preacher with love and hate tattooed on his knuckles, a performance so frightening and so precise that critics ran out of words for it. He played Max Cady in Cape Fear in 1962, a threat so slow and so certain that the film itself seemed to hold its breath around him. He never seemed to work very hard. He would walk onto a set, deliver lines he had barely glanced at the night before, and walk off again with something in the frame that other actors spent weeks trying to manufacture. It looked effortless, because for him it largely was. He said once, in his flat, unhurried way, that acting was just lying with commitment. The commitment was the only part he took seriously. He died in Santa Barbara on July 1st, 1997. He was 79 years old. He had been smoking since he was 14 and never once suggested he regretted it. The obituaries called him one of the last genuine originals of the studio era. They called him dangerous and magnetic and impossible to look away from. All of that was true, but it missed the thing about him that was harder to put in a headline. He was the kind of man who counted the exact amount of money in his pocket and matched it to a number he overheard from 20 feet away and crossed the street anyway. He made over 110 films in a career that spanned 5 decades. He never won an Academy Award. He never seemed to care. He never hired a publicist to manage his image, or issued a statement to manage a controversy, or performed remorse for a room full of people who had decided in advance what they thought of him. There is a photograph of Robert Mitchum taken sometime in the mid-1950s. No studio lighting, no careful pose. He is leaning against a wall somewhere outside, a cigarette between 2 fingers, jacket open. His eyes are half closed, not tired, not bored, just entirely, absolutely settled in himself. He is looking directly into the camera with an expression that says, "I have been in worse rooms than this. I have been counted out before. I am still here, and I don't need you to understand that. The world belongs to those who don't ask for permission. Authenticity is everything." If this story stayed with you, subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and they don't find you unless you're looking for them. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Tell me which Robert Mitchum film hit you the hardest. The notification bell is there for a reason. The next story is already waiting.